It's just ridiculous. This comes as it's revealed migrants will now account for 92% of Britain's population growth in the coming years. New ONS data shows that higher than expected immigration figures, to put it mildly, will see the number of people living in the UK grow by more than 6 million to over 70 million by 2036. Well, joining us now is social policy analyst and author Dr Rakib Ehsan. Rakib, great to have you on the show. Brilliant, man. I mean, look, you're one of few people who dares to stand up and talk about the impact this has on us societally, culturally and demographically. What are your thoughts on this massive increase in net migration we now have, where gross migration is running at a tally of around 1 million a year?
Well, Alex, the projected numbers are quite astonishing. So from mid-2021 to mid-2036, it's projected that our population will increase by 6.6 million people. Now, to put that in perspective, based on 2021 census data, that'd be more than double the population of Wales and 12 times larger than the population of Manchester as a city. But when you really drill down into the data, out of that 6.6 million, 500,000 will be natural change. So there'll be 500,000 more births than deaths. But as your channel has already covered, 91.8% of that is net international migration. And if you look down into those figures more deeply, 13.7 million people are projected to enter the UK over that period, 15-year period. Now, to put that in perspective, based on 2021 census data, that is equivalent to the population of London and the East Midlands region, which includes cities such as Leicester, Nottingham, Derby and Lincoln combined.
I'll tell you what, Rakib, what doesn't help is when politicians, the people in charge of trying to handle this escalating migrant crisis, start playing word games. So the government has admitted, frankly, in not so many words, to losing 5,000 migrants. I'm surprised it's that few. The elephant in the room about the migrant crisis in terms of those who come across the channel was always this. A fair percentage of them said, thanks very much for picking me up for the taxi service from the lifeboat service into Dover or Folkestone. Oh, thanks very much for the clean clothes and the nice meal and the 4-star hotel for the night. I'll just freshen up, get a good night's sleep, and then they disappear and we never see them again. Those kind of people aren't often spoken about. But now, according to the Home Secretary, Rakib, we must be careful. They are not lost. They have simply disengaged. This kind of word soup play does not help, does it?
Well, I think disengaged is not the term that I would use personally. I think it's very clear that we have a totally dysfunctional asylum system, and I've been saying this for years that this kind of problem is a gift, especially for exploitative employers, if you could call them that, in the black economy, and also for unscrupulous landlords as well. And we need to develop an environment where those kind of individuals, along with people smuggling gangs, we need to create a more hostile environment for them. And that includes giving more power and resources to the National Crime Agency. But of course, it poses a security risk. With this situation that we have when it comes to illegal migration on the English South Coast, we don't really know the kinds of loyalties and ideologies and previous organizational affiliations that people who are illegally entering the country have. So if they are to go missing, quite often they are placed in accommodation where the security there is not particularly strong and those facilities are not well regulated. If the Home Office does not know where they are within the UK, then that does pose a public security issue.
Now, going back to these outstanding figures, we've constantly been forced, I would say, to only ever talk about immigration in economic terms and being told repeatedly, well, it increases our GDP, isn't it great? We've not talked about wage compression until very recently. But what we've since learned is the Office for Budget Responsibility themselves have said, well, actually now, with the influx of people, the economic activity, the activity in the labour market is no different from domestic population. We can see the impact impact it's having on public services, and all these economic positives we're constantly sold are washing a bit thin. But I think what people are really waking up to are the social consequences of such rapid change in our high streets and in our neighbourhoods.
No, absolutely. I think those so-called economic benefits are grossly exaggerated. The idea that you need large-scale immigration to engineer economic growth is nonsense. We've had a high immigration, low growth model for some time in the UK, and we need to break ourselves away from that. But Alex, you're absolutely right to raise the more social and cultural problems that can come with large-scale immigration. And you've talked about the impact that can have on the availability of public services, the availability of affordable housing, but crucially when it comes to social cohesion. So I mentioned that figure earlier, projected number of 13.7 million people. That's an extremely high number, but we also have to talk about where those people are likely to come from. They may come from parts of the world where the prevailing social and cultural norms are not necessarily compatible with mainstream liberal democratic values. And I think that element of the immigration debate needs to be talked about a little bit more.
Dr Rakib Ehsan, always a pleasure to have you on board. Great to talk to you. Thank you very much.